Blinzuko. I'm not doing that anymore. Well, everyone, it's your boy Floz MG back with another episode of Tear Up. This time I'm ranking, well, the types of bending from Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra. Why? Because I'm running low on ideas. If you don't know what Avatar, The Last Airbender is, I honestly don't believe that you are alive. Let's get right into it, shall we? Before this video starts, I just want to say that only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you like this video and want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and you can always change your mind in the future. Now back to the video. The following are the tiers for this video. Ava tier, get it, that's a pun. White Lotus, approved by Iroh, Crazy as Boomy, and Down with Zhao. I wanted to do something a little different than just cancelled. So I decided to go with Down with Zhao. And I know with this I have a bunch of sub-bending types, but I'll get into those in a minute. First up we have the great Airbending, one of the original 4 bending types among the 4 nations. The original airbenders were the Sky Bison, and eventually the air nomads adopted their form of bending and were able to manipulate the air around them. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang was, well, the only airbender. So airbending was a very, very special part of the first series. But overall, as an element itself, I was going to debate it, but now that I'm remembering that it's one of the 4 base elements of air, water, earth, fire. And then you know we gotta put air in Avatar. Get it? It's a pun. Alright, next up we have Bloodbending. Bloodbending is like a form of water bending, but it involves blood, as in the name. Basically how it works is a waterbender manipulates the water, aka the blood, in a human being and makes them their puppet. The inventor of this technique was a Southern Water Tribe waterbender who got captured by the Fire Nation named Hama. They invented bloodbending as a means to escape and to capture members of the Fire Nation and put them under the same torture she went through. So bloodbending came of a dark past. Then again, it's also a dark bending. But even so, it is a really powerful bending. But as being that it's not one of the original 4, I can't put it in Avatar. I can, however, it is good enough to be put into White Lotus. That is at least fair. Alright, next up we have Combustion Bending. A sub-bending art of firebending. How I believe Combustion Bending works is concentrated fire blast from the mind. And most combustion benders have a sort of symbol on their forehead of a sort of eye? I could be getting that wrong. Either way, combustion bending is definitely a really powerful type of bending. However, it's not one of the most practical. Overall, I don't really find it as interesting as bloodbending. And for now, I think I'm just gonna have to put it in Crazy as Boomy. That's just my opinion. Moving on, we have another one of the base elements. We have Earthbending. Earthbending, if you don't know, is the bending of the earth. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the fighting styles of the 4 nations, like air, water, earth, fire, were all based off of actual martial arts. I forgot what the name of the air nomad martial arts was, but Earthbending was styled after Hungar, I believe. The original Earthbenders were the Badgermoles, if I'm not mistaken. Earthbending is a big part of the story in, well, Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 2. Apart from that, Earthbending has actually a lot of sub-bendings. You wouldn't think so. But overall, Earthbending, being one of the original bending forms, yeah, you know. It's an Avatar bending! Moving on, we have a sort of bending that was introduced toward the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender called Energybending. This was introduced to Aang by a giant lion turtle who explained to him that in the era before the Avatar, they bent none of the elements, but the energy within ourselves. And this form of bending is what allowed Aang to take away Fire Lord Ozai's firebending and other bad guys' forms of bending. And this type of bending is also what allowed Korra in The Legend of Korra to return people's bending that got taken by Amon. By the way, I should have mentioned, if you haven't gathered already, that this video is going to be full of spoilers. Energy bending is a really powerful one. It's the only thing that can completely disable a bender. It's actually quite on par with bloodbending, I'll say. White Lotus! Moving on, we have another one of the original four. We have Firebending, which I believe the martial arts it was styled after was Shaolin, if I'm not mistaken. Fire, as we all know, very dangerous. In fact, a whole nation who can control this element tried to take over the goddamn world. Look how that ended up. The original firebenders were the dragons, and eventually, the first firebenders, I believe, were the sun warriors. And over time, the source of firebending got completely askew, I'll say, to where firebending is like driven by rage and anger. But in actuality, what firebending is fire. It's like a tiny heartbeat. Fire is life, not just destruction. I'm gonna say that like Iroh now. But you know, Prince Zuko, fire is not just destruction. It is also like a tiny heartbeat. Fire is life. Prince Zuko. I'm not doing that anymore. But hey, you know where firebending has to go. It's an Avatar bending. Moving on. This actually isn't waterbending, but it's the only symbol I could find for healing. In a sense, it's a form of waterbending, but not exactly. Each of these other types of bending could be used as a means of fighting. Well, maybe not energy bending. But healing, that is a form of waterbending that very few waterbenders have. They can manipulate the properties of water to heal one's wounds. I could be going very askew. I could be very wrong, but what are you gonna do? But healing as itself, I wanted to include it, but now that I think about it, isn't exactly more like a sub-bending. It isn't even that, so, I'm sorry, it's down with Zhao. And after considering that, I'm gonna move energy bending down to approved by Iroh. Moving on, we have a form of bending that I believe was introduced in Legend of Korra, called lava bending. Now, when you think of lava, you think of really hot, something a firebender can control. But with lava bending, this is actually something an earthbender can do. Very, very few actually possess this ability. I believe they have to be born with one earthbending parent and one firebending parent. I'm fairly certain. So again, very few earthbenders have that ability. That's where Bolin from The Legend of Korra was able to get his lava bending. Because one of his parents was an earthbender and one was a firebender. But overall, it's not as impressive as many of the other ones. I'll say that. Sorry lava bending, but you are down with Zhao. I know you can barely see it, but the symbol down there is a symbol for lightning bending. A very powerful form of fire bending. Now, if I'm correct, lightning bending is controlling the positive and negative energy or something like that, colliding together and getting it outside of your body, something like that. I am definitely screwing this up. And once it's out your body, you're simply its guiding vessel. And Iroh actually invented a lightning bending technique that even Azula didn't know because, again, he invented it. And he invented it by studying the waterbenders and its lightning redirection. So say a firebender who's able to lightning bend shoots lightning at you. What you want to do is like redirect it by taking the lightning, and you're not actually controlling it. You are just simply its vessel for redirection, using your opponent's energy against them. Because Iroh, he invented this technique by studying waterbenders, and I definitely screwed up that explanation of what waterbending is. There's almost no doubt. But lightning bending, just because of how powerful it is, it's a white lotus type of bending. Moving on, next we have a subform of earthbending called metal bending. This was invented by Toph Beifong because she was captured by two earthbenders who were sent by her father to retrieve her after she ran away for joining the Avatar. So they captured her in like a metal box of sorts so she couldn't earthbend. But eventually she used like her, I think it's seismic sense, which she uses to sense vibrations, and she kept punching the metal. She was able to sense the earth within it. So she kept punching and punching and punching and punching, and eventually she made big dents and metal bended her way out of there. And thus, that's how metal bending was created! Thank you for coming to class today. We will appreciate you next semester. Metal bending, it is a really good one. And I will say it definitely progressed the story a little bit further. You know what? It's a White Lotus worthy one. Moving on, we have another subform of earthbending called sandbending. Really, really tiny particles of earth. The first sandbenders we're introduced to, I believe, are in an episode in Book 2, Earth, where they steal Appa. And Toph couldn't really do anything because she's blind and she can't really see in the sand. So she tries as well as she can, but it just doesn't work out. It's an interesting concept, but that's all it's going to be, a concept. It's a crazy as boomy type of bending. And lastly, we have the final type of bending from the Four Nations. We have water bending. The original waterbenders, I believe, were the moon and the ocean. Do I know the full explanation behind it? No. But the martial art of sorts that waterbending was formed after, I believe, was Tai Chi, using your opponent's energy against them. Waterbending was always my favorite type of bending for some reason. Probably just of how all the uses it had. Waterbending can be used for defense, for attack, that's really all there is in fighting. But like also the many states of water, like gaseous form, liquid form, ice form. There's just a lot to do with water. And again, I do not have to go into it. You will have to fight me on that if you don't think it's worthy. Well, I think these are my standings. I've been Floz MG. This has been Ranking the Avatar Elements, and I hope to see you all in the next video.
Bitch, I ain't your hero, don't call me a savior. Think I'm out of control, that's just my behavior. I'm bringing the house down, major devastation. You don't gotta worry, cause it don't matter, I'm antisocial.